Okay, so we've got a challenging question here. First of all, let's make sure we know what unit fractions are. A unit fraction is just any fraction where the numerator is 1 and the denominator is any integer. So it can be 2 or 4 or 17. Generally speaking, we're going to say 1 over n. So what the question is asking us is, in how many different ways can 1 over n be written as the difference of two unit fractions? So in other words, in how many different ways can we say 1 over n, where n is some integer, is equal to 1 over something minus 1 over some other something? So I've made a pie or a clock that's cut into 12 pieces. Let's go with pie. Hopefully that'll help us sort of visualize how we can explore this. So let's think about the first example that they give us here. For example, they say 1/3 is equal to 1/2 minus 1/6. So you can see here that these are all unit fractions. 1 over 3 is equal to 1 over 2 minus 1 over 6. So when we have a fraction like 1 over 3, and we're trying to see what two numbers that might be the difference of, we have to realize that the first number that we're going to be subtracting from has to be a fraction that is bigger than the original number that we are trying to get to. So notice that in terms of a pie, for example, 1/2 takes up more of the pie than 1/3. So that in the end, 1/6 is left over. But most importantly, we know that the number that we're going to be subtracting from is going to have a numerator, something here, that is bigger than the 3, than the n that we're trying to find. So for whatever unit fraction we're looking at, say it's 1 over n, we know that the first number that we're going to be subtracting from is going to be 1 over something that is bigger than n. Bigger than n. So to help you visualize that, let's look at this pie here. So let's look at 1/3. Okay, there it is. So that is 1/3 of the pie. Now, if we're trying to find out how 1/3 is a difference between one unit fraction and another unit fraction, we know that the first unit fraction that we subtract from is going to have to be bigger than 1/3 because we need to find the difference. It can't be smaller than 1/3 because then we're never going to get to 1/3 by subtracting. So in our first example here, the number that we're going to be subtracting from is 1/2 of the pie. So as you can see, that is taking up more of the pie than 1/3. And what's going to happen when we subtract is we're going to be subtracting 1/2 of the pie minus 1/3, and then we're going to be looking at what is left over here. So what is left over? We've got 2 slices here. 2 slices is equal to 2/12, which we can simplify down to 1/6. And there you have it. We have another unit fraction right there. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. How many other unit fractions can we explore? How many other fractions can we use in order to get to 1/3 as the difference? Well, they need to be they need to take up more room than 1/3. We know that, right? So we need something so that this fraction here, this unit fraction here, is bigger than 1/3, which means that the denominator has to be smaller. Well, we don't have much choice here. We've already used 1/2, so the only integer that is smaller than 2, and positive, I might add, is 1. So that's all that we have left. And how do we get to 1/3 from a whole pi using unit fractions? Well, our only choice is to subtract 1/3 and subtract another third. Now, the question specifically wanted to know, in how many different ways can 1/n be written as the difference of two unit fractions? And here we used 3. So we just discovered that 1/3 can only be written as the difference between one pair of unit fractions, 1/2 and 1/6. Let's explore the other numbers that they have given us as examples. So they've got 1/4 over here. Just gonna copy this down. So here's their second example. And we've got the fraction 1/4. So what are other unit fractions that are greater than 1/4 in terms of thinking about it as how much room it takes up on a pie? Well, we've got 1/3, 1/2, and 1/2, but we're not going to count 1/2 because we already know that we need to get there using more than one unit fraction, namely other quarters. So let's see what we can get to here with starting with subtracting from 1/3. So 1/4 is equal to 1/3 minus what? Well, let's see if we can figure it out using our pi. So first of all, let's paint in what portion of the pie is represented by 1/4. So that's 3 slices. Just like that. And what portion of the pie is represented by 1/3? Well, it's going to be more than that. So let's just draw stripes over how many slices are represented by 1/3. And that's going to be 4 slices because 4/12 is 1/3. And now the question is, if we have 1/3 of the pie, what do we need to subtract in order to get to 1/4? Well, we need to get rid of this one slice here. And one slice is represented by 1/4. And that matches what we have, what we were given up here. And what's the other fraction that we can try? Well, 1/4 is also equal to 1/2 minus something. And let's look at our pie once again. I'm going to get rid of these colors and we can try working with some new ones. Okay, so once again, we're going to paint in 3 slices to represent 1/4 of the pie. And now I need to represent 1/2 of the pie. So I'm going to paint in stripes over top here, over 6 slices because 6/12 is 1/2. And now the question is, how many slices do I need to subtract from half in order to get to 1/4? Well, here they are. 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 12 slices, 3/12, which we also know can be represented as 1/4. Okay, so for 1/4, I found two different ways to represent unit fractions using two other unit fractions. Let's see if I'm finding a pattern here. Let's look at the third example that we're given using 1/6. So what unit fractions can we expect to be able to explore here? Well, like I said before, they need to be bigger than 1/6 so that we can subtract 1/6 from them. So our options include 1/5, 1/4, 1/3, and 1/2. These are fractions that we can try to see if we can find one other corresponding unit fraction so that together their difference is 1/6. Okay, so let's try it out here. What are our examples above? Oops. 1/6 equals 1/5 minus something, and then we're also going to try 1/6 equals 1/4 minus something. Let's get these guys. 1/6 equals 1/3 minus something, and we'll also try 1/6 equals 1/2 minus something. Okay, so let's start with 1/5, and we know that in order to add and subtract fractions, we need to have a common denominator, which means that we need to find the lowest common multiple between the denominators. And for 6 and 5, it's 30. So I'm going to start off by putting question marks here so that we can come back to them. So now instead I'm going to say, instead of 1/6, I'm going to write 5/30. Instead of 1/5, I'm going to write 6/30. And I know that their difference, oops, what I mean to write here is 6/30 minus what is 5/30? Well, it's 1/30. Okay, that's a unit fraction. Great. Let's take a look at the next one. So what is the lowest common multiple of 6 and 4? It's 12. So how do I get to a denominator of 12 from 1/6? That is the same as writing 2/12 is equal to 3/12 minus what? So 3/12 minus what is 2/12? Well, 1/12. That's, oops, 1/12. That's also a unit fraction. Great, let's continue. Okay, so here we have the lowest common factor of 6 and 3 is 6, so we can rewrite this as 1/6 is equal to 2/6, and 2/6 minus what is 1/6? It is 1/6. Also a unit fraction. And last but not least, I think I have to continue this in the next video.